This is Join Us in France, episode 565. 565. Bonjour, I'm Annie Sargent, and Join Us in France is the podcast where we take a conversational journey through the beauty, culture, and flavors of France. Today I bring you a conversation with Helena Fedorec, who celebrated turning 70 in style. She traveled solo, she was incredibly savvy, and she did it all on a budget. You'll hear her share her month-long adventure across France by train, bus, and foot, uncovering hidden gems, art, gardens, and the joys of slow travel. She went from Nice to Chartres. You will discover how to explore France affordably, connect with locals, which she loves doing, and embrace the freedom of the open road. There is inspiration for every traveler in this chat with Helena, who is a wonderful boot camper as well. So I know her in person. She's an amazing human being. This podcast is fueled by chocolatine, coffee, and the generosity of listeners like you. You book itinerary consoles, take my voice map tours, join the boot camp, hop in my electric car for a day trip, or chip in on Patreon, and I'm so grateful for that. Want to keep me going and skip the ads? There's a link for that in the show notes. And to look up any of my products or services, go to joinusinfrance.com/boutique, and merci. Half of the tickets for Bootcamp 2026 are already sold. I'm surprised by this. It's selling surprisingly quickly this year. If you'd like to find out more about this event, browse to joinusinfrance.com/bootcamp 2026. But let me tell you quickly that the dates are October 3rd until 10th, so next year, 2026. And you can join us in France for 7 days of hanging out with fellow Francophiles, visits of wonderful sites around Toulouse and Occitanie, and optional language classes. If this is the first you've heard of the bootcamp and want to know more, first of all, welcome to you. And you can email me, annie@joinusinfrance.com. For the magazine part of the podcast, after my chat with Helena today, I'll discuss why I've stopped recommending Komoot, the route planning app for hiking, cycling, and running, and switched to recommending Decathlon Outdoor instead. I made the switch a few months ago, but since I release episodes several months after I record them, you haven't heard me talk about that yet, and it's time to fix that. I'll also talk about the closing of the Centre Pompidou in Paris. It's closing for 5 years. And the Bayeux Tapestry Museum is also closed until October 2027. The British Museum in London will display the tapestry, and I'll give you all the details in the magazine part of the podcast. There's a website and a newsletter to go along with this podcast, and you can go there when panning for gold nuggets of information in preparation for your trip to France. And the newsletter is pretty good too. joinusinfrance.com/newsletter if you'd like to sign up. Bonjour, Helena Sweeney, and welcome to Join Us in France.
Bonjour, Annie.
Wonderful to see you again because we know each other from the bootcamp, don't we?
True indeed.
Yes, and you're coming back to the bootcamp.
I am. Had such a wonderful time.
Wonderful, wonderful. But today we are going to talk about a solo trip that you took. You were turning 70 and you decided you wanted to make it a budget trip. So we're going to concentrate on that, on your preparation, on how you found your budget options, and also what were your favorite things to do. You went off the beaten track a little bit on this trip, which is wonderful. So, Helena, tell us about your preparation for this trip. How did you go about? What inspired it, and how did you prepare for it?
Okay, so turning 70 was coming up, and I really dislike parties and fuss made and gatherings. So I said to my family, please don't plan anything. I'm going to go away. In fact, I'm going to go away for a whole month, and I'm going to go to France, and I'm just going to do it by train or by bus or by walking, and just take it very simply and slowly. And in a sense, just celebrating the fact that, still here, can do all these things and enjoy it. Now, I need to say that my family then promptly decided that they would turn up halfway through. So there were 3 days when they were actually with me, with the 3-year-old granddaughter, and my lovely son came over from Australia, complete surprise.
Wow.
Most of the trip was by myself, but I can actually also tell you a little bit about what it was like being in France with a 3-year-old.
Very good. Yes, and we should say that you are from Australia, but you live in England right now.
That's right, yeah, you can probably hear a mixed. I lived in Australia for 45 years, and then about 4 years ago, returned to England, which is it gives me access to France.
Yes. All right. So, how did you plan this trip? What tips can you share with listeners about how to go about that?
Yeah. So I'm not one of those people who likes to plan every single minute of every day and make huge plans. But what I do is look at, if you like, a big picture. And beforehand, I knew that I wanted to travel as much as possible, but keep it manageable financially. One of the most useful books I used was Europe by Rail, and that could show me some routes that are available on the main train lines in France. I decided against buses because often the travel times were too long, whereas the trains seem really efficient in Europe. So I planned a route, and I think I mentioned it to you, and you gave me some ideas too, that would take me in a big circle. So I knew I was going to go to France by Eurostar. If you book long enough in advance from England, you can get to Paris for £39 one way. So I had both going and coming back at a very cheap rate. So I knew my starting and finishing point would be Paris. And then I planned a route that took me from Paris to Nice, from Nice to Toulouse. Could not miss out on Toulouse after being there for the boot camp, gorgeous city. Then to Bordeaux, then to La Rochelle and Angers. That was your suggestion. And then from there, I went up to Chartres. I'd been there before, and then returned through to Paris.
Wonderful. So, when you said you booked your Eurostar in advance, how far in advance did you do it?
I think I did it. They released the dates about, I think it's between 3 and 6 months, and I think it's 3 months in advance. You can actually download the Eurostar app and subscribe, and that way you get notifications of when the cheap tickets are coming through. So they often have flash sales that last for 3 days or something.
Uh huh.
It's actually really worth just following it regularly. And that includes trains not just to Paris, but also to Lille, to Belgium, and Amsterdam.
Very nice. Did you purchase a discount card?
Yes. So, again, part of traveling by rail, because obviously I'm over 60, I learnt about the SNCF senior rail card. I forget how much it was. It wasn't that expensive, actually. It was under £50, way under £50, and you get a third off rail travel. And was really useful. So again, there's an app that you download on your phone. And there were a few times when I was traveling, especially around the Nice area, that I would, on the spur of the moment, decide to take a train, and I could book it on my phone, and I also got the discount. And the long journeys, I got the discount. That was really worth doing.
Right. And this card, I think the full price is 69 euros, but the senior card goes on sale as well occasionally.
I think I got it on sale.
There's discount cards for different age groups, but every time you have to buy it, and it's worth it. If you just take a couple of train trips, it's usually worth it, especially if you can buy it at the discount price.
Totally agree.
Yeah. And I assume you booked most of your tickets through the app. Did you use SNCF Connect or did you use another app?
Okay, the major travel, getting from city to city, I bought in advance and booked in advance. And I used, good question, no, I used the SNCF app, but I actually also have the train line app. There were a couple of times when I made spontaneous trips, like, short trips to a little town or whatever, when I would actually, it was easier to book on the spot with train line. Yeah, and it just depended which trains I was going to be taking. If that sounds vague, and it probably does sound vague, it's because at the time I'd work out, okay, what's the best one to do now, given the time that I've got.
Right, right. Yeah, and Trainline and SNCF app, SNCF Connect, work well together because once you have booked a ticket, you have a ticket number and you can import it from one to the other. With SNCF app, you can also put your ticket on your Apple Watch if you want to. So, these are pretty nifty applications. I learned today, and I hadn't realized this, maybe it's new, that you can also buy your metro tickets on the SNCF app. It's a pretty good app. I run my phone in English, so it downloaded the app in English. And so there's no complications for people who don't speak French, and you do. But speaking of that, was it necessary for you to have some level of French, seeing that you were not always in super touristy parts of the country?
Okay, so was it necessary? No, so long as you really do need those basic understandings of greetings. You have to say bonjour to people and show respect and, yeah, have a basic knowledge of the language. I do now speak fairly good French, probably better than I spoke when I was at the boot camp because I've started a French cafe. So every week we meet and speak French.
Bravo, bravo.
I think that was one of the great advantages for me that although I love traveling solo, I also like talking to people that I meet. And I got into some really interesting conversations when I was on a train or sitting next to someone in a cafe, a couple of times sitting in a garden and there'd be someone working on the garden and we'd start talking. So I think if people can work on their French before they go to France, it really pays off. One time in particular, the only time I had a problem with accommodation, most of the time I stayed in hostels, and there was one time when had a night in a hotel, and my booking had been stuffed up, and it was actually very useful then to be able to speak French.
Yes, yes. I should say that you are a very sociable person. You enjoy the company of other people. You enjoy talking to people. And so it comes naturally to you. But I think it's worth making an effort to chit chat with French people if you can. You know, it won't be life changing, okay? But it will make your journey more pleasant. That's for sure.
I often read on Facebook sites people who feel very wary and imagine that every person who approaches them is going to be a pickpocket. And you do need to be sensible. Would never doubt that traveling in any situation. But don't expect the worst from people. Yeah. Smile.
Yeah, smile, be a real human being and try to talk to people. That's excellent. Okay, so we know that you use the SNCF and Trainline apps. What else did you do to plan for this trip?
Okay, so the way that I do it is once I had my cities in place, one thing with the budget is I find is you've got to think, where do I want to spend my money? So for some people, they would make eating out or trying different wines or exploring different shopping areas, for example, a priority. And that's really good. For me, I knew that the things that I really wanted to do were to see art galleries, to see museums, and I do have a thing about visiting gardens. So that was another reason why the places that I went to, I actually looked beforehand at what museums were there or what gardens were there. So with planning, I would always plan at least 3 nights in a location. And personally, I think 5 nights is worth it. Even in a place that people say, oh, there's not much there, because I'm a huge fan of slow travel. If you take time in a place and explore, you actually really get a feel of how people have lived over years. What are the particular aspects of each town? You discover some lovely little cafes. I mean, my idea of luxury is a cup of coffee and a glass of wine. And the height of luxury is a cheese platter to go with it. So I had 5 nights in Nice, and then most of the others were either 4 or 3. So what I would do on every day is pick out maybe 2 places that I would want to see during that day. I do an awful lot of walking. I prefer not to base things around having to do long journeys on metro or something like that. And quite often I would choose places that are maybe about 2 hours apart, 2 hours on foot, because part of what I enjoy doing is walking somewhere and looking at the buildings, looking at the gardens, all those things.
So that's a long walk. I mean, if you are going to walk 2 hours between the venues you want to visit and then back to your accommodations, what, you were walking for 6?
Yeah, I quite often do that though. I'll set up early in the morning. Yeah, so it's not for everyone. The point I'm making though, Annie, is not to think, right, I'm going to see this museum and then I'm going to see that walk and then I'm going to do this restaurant and then I'm going to do this. Is just keep it very simple, but know where you want to go.
Yeah, you will always find somewhere to eat along the way if you're hungry. Now, if it's super duper rural, like in my village, but there's under 3,000 people in my village. If you don't eat when the one restaurant is open, well, you're not going to eat because there's no grocery store. You have to kind of be aware that there are places where your choices are limited. But most places, you'll find something.
And that's really relevant because I stayed in towns. I didn't stay in small villages because I was reliant on public transport.
Yeah, tiny villages, you really need your own wheels. You need a bicycle at least, so you can get around. Did you find that there were safety concerns? Because if you're walking for 6 hours during the day, do you sometimes run into places that were like, oh, I'm not so sure about this place?
No. No. I mean, I've travelled on my own in places like India and elsewhere, and it's I don't take silly risks. I really don't. So in Nice, for example, no, I mean, I was staying in very safe cities, and I don't go out late at night. That's just me. And I mean, one of those things though with the walking is I'm a huge fan of voice tours. So that was again part of the planning. And when I was in Paris, your voice tours are absolutely amazing.
Well, thank you, Helena.
I've done all of them and just love revisiting them. Some of them I checked, part of my preparation listening to podcasts was in particular Join Us in France, searching for the towns where I was going to stay and seeing what episodes related to those places or the interviews. And through that, I came across Jeannie Oliver's voice tours in Nice.
Yes.
Both of hers, and that's really interesting. And obviously, Elise's tour for Toulouse.
For Toulouse, yeah.
And there were 2 more for Bordeaux. I can't remember the name of the person. They didn't come through Join Us in France. To be honest, they weren't, the outstanding ones. Your Paris ones are the outstanding ones. But when I was in Paris, the time that I planned in Paris was actually around your voice tour. In this case is it Les Halles? I always
Les Halles. Les Halles. You don't, yeah.
I always mispronounce that one.
No liaison, that one.
I loved that tour. I really loved it.
Thank you.
Because you can think you know a place reasonably well, but often with the voice tour, when it's done well, the person will take you to places that you may not have noticed and tell you background stories, and you can stop and start as much as you want to. And if it's raining, you just go and sit in a cafe. And it's so much cheaper than doing one of the, guided tours that often aren't done very well.
A lot of the ones that you mentioned here are all on the Voice Map app, and any town in France you go to, Voice Map is asking me if I would write tours for other cities. Apparently, there's a ton of people searching for a tour of Lourdes and Bergerac.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I'm not too far from either one of these cities. I guess I could. It wouldn't have occurred to me. But people do search for these voice map tours because they enhance your visit. Like somebody has done the research, somebody can take you to the right places, somebody can tell you the stories and the history. La grande histoire et la petite histoire, as we say in French. You have history with a big H, big events, and then you have the little histories that make it fun.
So, and another one I'll just tell people because I often see questions about this. In Paris, as I said, I did I'm going to say it wrongly again. Les Halles?
Les Halles.
Oh, I always get that one
Les
wrong.
Halles. Just pretend there's no A. Les Halles.
That's no problem. Les Halles. But I was staying very close to Père Lachaise Cemetery and I wanted to see Edith Piaf's grave again. And there's a really good one. It's free. It's on Rick Steves' app. And he does a tour of Père Lachaise Cemetery, and that was really useful for finding the graves that people want to see, and some that you're probably not, or most of us aren't aware of there. That was a really, really worthwhile one to do.
Very cool. Yes, Ray Steves has several free tours that are also quite good. I've walked some, and they were fine, And there are other companies that also do voice tours. If you just do a search for audio tour of XYZ place, you will find different companies that provide these.
Another thing I found that I needed to do, so I started in Nice because of the number of artists who lived and worked there and the museums, check in advance whether the museums are actually open. I was fine because the Chagall Museum was the one that I really wanted to see. But I think there were 3 others that were actually closed at the time that I was there, which is fine because there's so much to see. But that thing of checking in advance, especially because the number of public holidays or swap overs of exhibitions is really important.
Exactly. That's one of the few reasons why it's good sometimes to try to buy your ticket in advance, is because at least you'll visit the website. And if you try to buy a ticket and there isn't any available, you might wonder, oh, why? It's a good thing to check.
So in Nice, the first day I walked up to the monastery, I stayed in a wonderful, wonderful hostel. And lots of people said to me, are you staying in hostels I mean, this was in a mixed dorm, right? And it was full. And it was fabulous because it was in an old church, an old chapel. The couple, they run it extremely well. I think it's called La Mayenne Guest House. It's right in the old city. And they've travelled widely and they basically have taken their ideas from what they've experienced and what they would hope for. So there's a real emphasis on peace and quiet, very clear guidelines, and everyone sticks to them. And beautiful breakfast in the morning. And I got to meet some really interesting people, but I could still go off and do my own thing, which is what I like doing. I went to the Monastère de Simiers, which is a beautiful, beautiful eco garden. And then you can walk down the hill to the Chagall Museum, which is really worth visiting, just stunning. And then from there, I could walk to the Russian Orthodox Church in Nice. And I mean, Nice is so rich in history, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a beautiful city. It's a lovely city. And it's well worth spending. You can easily fill 5 days in Nice. You could easily fill 10 days in Nice, really. There's a lot to do. And I should mention that you sent me some very detailed notes of your trip. So there will be a page called Guest Notes. So if you go to the episode page for this episode and then click on the guest notes, you'll see everything she sent me. I mean, you had notes about check-in hours for the specific hostel and things like that, or how long it would take you to walk somewhere.
Oh, that's part of my planning beforehand. I look at how I'm going to get from the station to the place. I know lots of people take Ubers and that's fine, but I just tend not to. That's just me. I love being able to use a bus or else to walk. But yeah, I do that.
Yeah. And in France, Bolt is also a good possibility. You know, I'm trying to get away from Uber. If I have to, I call a Bolt or a taxi. And I assume you traveled light?
I always travel very light, yeah, so that I can walk. And I now use, being older, look, I've had this for donkey's years. I think I've probably had it for 20 years. It's an Osprey wheeled backpack, a small one, but it has an attached day pack that can come off. And it's light enough and small enough that I can pull it along, or I can wear it as a backpack, or I can put away the backpack straps and just carry it like a suitcase. And most important, and this is really important if anyone's traveling by train, there is very limited luggage space on trains. So although there are the racks by the doors, they would fill up absolutely immediately. And I don't know that would feel comfortable putting the suitcase there anyway, but the Osprey backpack actually fits in the narrow luggage rack above your seat.
Wow, that's nice. The whole backpack fits up there.
Yeah, I took off the day pack and then it was narrow enough to fit up on the luggage rack.
Wow.
I never had any problems with security, and you do the obvious things like keeping your eyes on it. And
Right. I mean, trains are safe. I haven't heard of theft on the train, but you're right.
common sense, yeah.
It just takes one thief, right?
Yeah. I just saw some people with very big suitcases, and I just thought, why are you making life difficult for yourself?
Yeah, because if you're absolutely needing something, you can always get one. Yeah.
I mean, France is very well equipped, yeah.
If you're unsure about should I bring this or not, my answer is probably don't, because if you really, really need it, you'll get it there.
So some of the places I managed to go, and a lot of it was, jumping on buses or walking or getting advice from other people. Saint-Paul-de-Vence and the Fondation is it Maite?
I'm not sure how they say that. It's not a French word.
Everyone should go there. Wonderful, wonderful collection of art, and also a collection of art books. So from different artists like Matisse and others, absolutely stunning. And then from there, you can walk along a path, which is along a kind of hill ridge, to Cagnes-sur-Mer, where there's the Musée Renoir, where he used to live. And as you walk along this path, and most people seem to be taking buses or driving rather than doing this walk, you come to locations where Renoir and others have done paintings, and there are copies of those paintings in position, so you can see what the artist was saying. It was just stunning walk.
Wonderful.
The Musée Renoir, I think, was probably one of my favourite places. A lot of people I know, for good reason, go to Giverny, and I would say do the two if you can.
Yeah, so also do the Musée Renoir in Cagnes-sur-Mer.
Yeah, absolutely, especially, to sit where his studio is and see the olive groves that Renoir painted, and film clips of one in particular of an elderly lady talking, and she was one of his favourite models when she was a child growing up, and she's just describing the family life and atmosphere. Really beautiful.
Wonderful.
Somewhere I didn't like, but again, this is me,
Yeah.
is people talked a lot. Oh, right, if you're going to go to Nice, you've got to go to, is it Ez?
As, yes.
Ez and the Jardin Exotique, the exotic gardens there.
Yes.
I personally found Ez was a disappointment. There were so many tourists. The hostel owner told me that apparently it's only recently that there's been a car park put in
Yes.
such that the coaches can go there, and that since then you get very large groups occasionally going there when cruise ships are coming through. And there were just so many influences taking photos. It was so irritating.
Wow.
Yeah, but from there, if you do go there, there's a walk that you can take down from Ez, and you go down the Chemin de Nitz along the mountain. And I think that was one of my favourite experiences in the whole month. It was just stunning scenery.
Did
Very
you
oh,
did you have walking sticks?
no, I kept thinking it. See me now, they're gonna be so angry. I fell over twice, don't worry.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, walking sticks would be good. For me, if I was gonna do that, this last time I was in the US, okay, this is so me. I was at Costco and I saw some walking sticks that look short enough to put in a carry-on suitcase, and I bought them and they do fit. And I'm never going anywhere without those walking sticks. If I know I'm going to take walks, I mean, if I'm going to Paris, I'm not going to use walking sticks in Paris, but other places, always have them just in case.
Oh, great. Oh, just one, yeah. This path is where Nietzsche actually wrote or was inspired to write.
Zarathustra.
And then you get down the bottom and the train station is there.
It's really interesting what you say about Ez, because I have been to Ez, but not since they opened this parking garage called the Parking Charles de Gaulle, which goes under the plaza. And I'm sure, because that was the major problem in Ez, was parking. And now that they have a parking garage, yeah, I'm sure it has quadrupled the number of visitors.
And a lot of visitors who I don't think realise how difficult it is to walk in is because it's steep and rocky, and they expect quaint little shops and so on, and they were just really struggling. There's so many beautiful places to go to.
Yeah, Mont Saint Michel is about like that as well. People underestimate, especially the after 50 crowd. It's cobblestone, it's steep, it can be slippery.
But where I would recommend, and you can do this from Nice easily, I took a bus out to now it's on Cap-Ferrat, and I bet I haven't pronounced that properly, the Rothschild Villa.
Yes.
And that is extraordinarily beautiful, also with very, very beautiful gardens. And that I'd say is far easier for people with any kind of mobility.
Yes, it's flatter. I mean, you take the train and then you have to walk a little bit, but it's not a super long walk or a difficult walk.
No, I took the bus. You take the bus and it stops almost outside.
Oh, there you go. You take a bus afterwards. Okay, even easier.
And then from there, you can take the bus onto Menton, which is just gorgeous. Absolutely.
Okay, so you didn't take a train at all to Saint-Jean-Cap-Ferrat. You took the bus.
No, I took the bus. Yeah.
Aha.
So the hostel where I stayed had all the timetables and things like that. But you can find that information quite easily online. And it's really easy. Oh, sorry. Another thing that I bought while I was in Nice, and we're only on Nice at the moment, it was what's it called? Oh, it's a card.
Like the day pass for the transportation?
No, it's not a day pass. It was a 5-day pass. Whatever it's called. It's in the notes anyway.
Yeah, it's in the notes. Let's see if I can find it.
I had 2 things that I could have bought. I decided not to buy the expensive one that I think was aimed more at tourists. I bought a local one, and that was it was just a tap on, tap off a lot of the time with it.
Sud Azur Pass.
That's it.
And you said it was on recommendation from Lachlan Cook.
There you go. I did it.
Hello, Lachlan.
Hey, listen, there you go.
Yeah, we listen to you. Uh-huh.
Follow your recommendation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good. How, briefly, sidetrack here. How did you pick the hostels where you were staying?
So one thing that I do when as part of the preparation is before I go to a town, I'll just put in a not a Google search, but a search on Facebook with the name of that town, and then I'll put accommodation. And you'd be surprised how many posts come up under little Facebook groups, which actually have recommendations for different places. And there is a site, and I can't remember it now because I don't belong to it anymore because I'm not there, but it was something about visiting Nice and Provence. And somebody had asked a question about hostel accommodation. This place was highly recommended. So then I followed up and did a bit of research.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Or, I mean, look, I've got the booking.com app and I did a lot through that. But I'd come up with a place and then I get quite obsessive about, shall I do that? Yeah. And then I let it go and go with the flow. But using some of those groups and just looking at what people are saying is quite handy. But recognizing what applies to individuals, like, I'm not interested in expensive meals, for example. So I wouldn't be looking for where are the good places to eat.
Yeah.
Because I do look at where's the good art gallery to go to.
All right, let's talk about some of the other places you visited.
Well, then I went on to Bordeaux, after Toulouse, where I
Right.
met up with Elise and said hello. It was just lovely. So,
Yeah, I was away. I couldn't join up with you.
well, and that's right. See you soon at the boot camp. Then I went on to Bordeaux, and I think I said to you, it was real mourning that I'd left this beautiful Toulouse with the pink buildings and arrived in Bordeaux, and it's the white limestone, and it was, what? I did a couple of voice maps there, and then my family turned up, daughter and her wife, and gorgeous, gorgeous 3-year-old granddaughter. We went for a meal to this vegan restaurant, and I'm thinking, why are we going to a vegan one? It's my son who's the strict vegan. And then my son and his gorgeous girlfriend walked in. They had flown in from Australia without telling me, and it was beautiful.
Oh, that's great.
Anyone who's vegan traveling in France, so what Savas said to me about how he found this place, because he had insisted we go there, was he uses an app called the Happy Cow.
Yeah.
And it's excellent for telling you where vegan, I'm not sure about vegetarian places are, but certainly vegan. And this place is called Monkey Mood in the town. I cannot recommend it highly enough. It was delicious food. And I'm not vegan. I am vegetarian, and it was beautiful. It really was.
Yeah. What's your son's name? You mentioned him, but I didn't catch his name.
So their dad is Greek, and he's Savas. Sava. Savas.
Savas. I had never heard that name. That's pretty.
And my daughter's Maria.
Very nice.
I'll just mention on Bordeaux, a lovely town to visit, city to visit, is what I got used to leaving Toulouse. Having a 3-year-old there, and this was rainy weather, so people often think, oh, what can I do with a child? So this might be a good tip for people. Her mum's had brought her little scooter with her, right? And the scooter has a strap on it. So when she's scooting along or standing on the scooter, you hold the strap. So you've got control that she's not going to go careering into people or into the pavement. It was ideal, not having a pusher or a stroller to have to carry around. She loved it because the pavements are so wide and, she felt in control. It was lovely. And there is so much for children to do. It was something that really impressed me in France is that almost every museum that I went into has activities for children, hands-on activities like having building blocks or colouring things or asking little questions. And in Bordeaux, we visited the Musée d'Illusion, the illusions thing. All the family really, really loved that. Museum of Natural History, again, very hands-on, really interesting. And there's a whole section just aimed at little kids. Another one that we visited on the Cap de Science was there's an exhibition with dinosaurs, moving models of dinosaurs. She absolutely loved it. And there are hands-on activities like big tubs of sand, and you could be an archaeologist. She was given a bucket and some tools and had to scrape away to find the bones underneath and then find out which dinosaur they matched, all those things. Or just in France, they have these lovely jardins publics with the playground areas. I was a bit worried about bringing a 3-year-old there, and she probably had a better time than anyone else. Very good at saying bonjour to everyone.
Yes, and people would love that. Love a little kid who's gregarious and says bonjour and smiles and looks happy.
It's true, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so once they'd gone, then I went on to La Rochelle. Can't recommend that highly enough. Absolutely lovely little town to stay in. And I'm very old. I'm sort of mindful. We haven't got much time, so I better not rave on forever. From La Rochelle, I did a trip to Île de Ré, which I found a bit touristy, to be honest, but the history is very, very rich.
It is. Île de Ré and all of these islands around there, some of the smaller ones, not so much because they're harder to get to. But the ones that are easy to get to, I mean, Île de Ré has a bridge, for heaven's sakes. You know?
I went by bus.
Right. So it's easy to get to. Lots of people. And you were there. I don't know if we mentioned it, but you were there in October. You spent the month of October. I mean, it was still kind of shoulder season. There were still people, but not as many as.
Lovely. It was really lovely. Yeah, I think October's a good time to go to France.
This last October was rainy, though. So it was rainier than normal.
Interesting. Do you know, Annie, I look back and all I remember is sunshine and no problems with weather. When I looked back at my photos, I thought, oh, hang on a minute. The day I was in Menton that afternoon, there was actually monsoon type rain. And the same in Bordeaux. All the time the family was there, most of the time it was raining. But we just had such fun. It didn't, I don't remember us. And Thea, my little granddaughter, she had a whale of a time because she loved splashing in puddles.
That's great.
La Rochelle, there are a lot of covered passageways. So whether it's too hot or too rainy, you actually can find cover very, very easily.
It's a beautiful town. I mean, honestly, La Rochelle is a gorgeous city.
Oh, absolutely. And again, lots for children, including a sandy beach. And from there, I went to Angers, where the Apocalypse tapestry is, that dates from, is it the 14th century? It was commissioned, I think.
I don't remember that detail, but yeah.
It's absolutely stunning. It's not until you actually see it, the actual tapestry, that you realise what an extraordinary achievement it is. And then we also have a museum and an old hospital, which is Jean Lursa, I think his name is, and he did a kind of modern version of the Apocalypse tapestry after World War II, which includes the Hiroshima Man. And that is so moving, really, really worth visiting. And again, Angers, a beautiful city. I mean, the modern section has this lovely shopping centre and all those kinds of things, but it's just a lovely city to walk around. I would definitely like to go back.
It is, yeah.
And then Chartres, I was very lucky, I knew it was going to happen anyway. I was there the last day that the labyrinth, which is in the centre of the cathedral, was actually uncovered. The chairs are moved back so that you can walk the labyrinth. And the idea of the labyrinth is kind of a meditation, a journey. It's a bit like the journey of life that you're walking towards and away from the centre, and you walk alone, but you keep bumping into other people as they're walking in another direction. It's a really beautiful experience. So I got there the last day that was possible, about the 26th of October.
Right.
And then spent quite a bit of time around it.
So most cathedrals used to have a labyrinth because it was part of the meditative kind of pilgrimage. And a few have kept them. But even if they kept them, you have to know that there didn't used to be benches or chairs in churches, in cathedrals. This is a newish development. In the Middle Ages, people entered the cathedral and walked around the cathedral. They deambulated. Déambulatoire is what it is in French. And they would just walk. And if the priests came out to do mass, they would stop, some of them, but not necessarily. They would just keep walking. It was just a very different way of experiencing a church. And the labyrinth, like you said, it's going to the center of your life and then back out and then leaving. it's entering life and exiting life is what it tries to signify. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful experience. Yeah.
And next to the cathedral, there's La Musée de Vitrail, the Museum of Stained Glass. And I mean, one of the most special things about Chartres Cathedral are the windows. Are they the most completely preserved medieval?
I don't know about the most. I mean, the Sainte-Chapelle are also extremely well preserved. I don't know the most, but they are extremely well preserved, yes.
Yeah, they are. And during the Second World War, they were taken down as a way of looking after them. And as lovely as they are in situ in the cathedral, there's bits that you can't really see very clearly. But in La Musée de Vitrail, you can go in there and they've got each of the windows, copies of them, so you can actually look close up at the details. And they're just fascinating. And then there are little films on how stained glass is made, the whole process. And then in modern stained glass. And I found a window that I recognised from my hometown of Adelaide in Australia. And I was almost in tears. Just, oh, wow.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, that's the difference between traveling as okay, check, I went to Chartres Cathedral, check off to the next thing, and really experiencing a place for a few days. Because if you stay for 3 days, you have time to go to the stained glass museum and you have time to just waste a little time on the beautiful little plazas that they have, where you could have a drink or a glass of wine or a meal or whatever you enjoy and, just take it easy. Enjoy the moment.
I had done a day trip to Chartres, probably about 5 or 6 years ago. And so that was a day trip and I used it well, but had not seen what I saw with staying. I think I stayed 3 nights in Chartres. And I don't know whether it's just during October or whether it goes longer, but a lot of the towns had the Lumière. So it was Chartres en Lumière. And there's a whole walking trail that you can do to see the different buildings lit up and the bridges and stories being told. That was fascinating. And I wouldn't have done that had I done a day trip.
Right. You can't do that if you just do a day trip. And yeah, to do that, you have to stay a few nights, at least one night, and you have to stay up until dark.
Or back very late at night, and I don't do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we need to bring this to a close. I'm sure you had many, many other wonderful experiences, but I will remind people that I will put your guest notes with lots of details about where you stayed and how you got around and things like that, because that's going to save people a ton of time, or at least inspire them to go spend some time. Would you say, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say that it's part of the joy of life to travel and take your time, right?
I'm, as I said, a huge believer in slow travel and encounter. Oh, I didn't even tell you about Parc de Sceaux, which is, surprising that I stayed in another hostel, student hostel, at Fontenay-aux-Roses, just outside the periphery, but at the end of a metro line for my last night. And then discovered this place, Parc de Sceaux, which is a fantastic chateau and gardens. Really recommend going there. But when I was leaving Fontenay-aux-Roses, I was on the station platform coming up in the elevator, and it was a tiny, tiny elevator. And there was a mother with 3 small children. She was wearing a hijab, and the children were probably 3, 4, and 5. They were very close in age, very young. And we all squashed in this tiny elevator together. And the little girl looked up at me and she gave this huge grin. And then she made a heart shape with her fingers and she looked at me through them. And I laughed and replied to her in French. I always say I'm Australian when I'm traveling. And I laughed and I replied to her in French and said, the children in Australia do that too. And I made the sign back to her and I said, I'm from Australia. And then the mother started laughing and she said, we're all traveling, aren't we? And I thought, well, that really sums it up. I'm like, wherever you are, you're traveling. You're traveling. It's the gift of, encounter and connection and being open.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, Helena, you are wonderful. Keep traveling. You are an inspiration. I'm sure lots of people are going to say, I need to take that trip I've been hoping to take because...
And do it their way. Yeah, you do it your way. Find out what interests you.
Right. And don't let budget be, you can do this. Most nights you paid, what, 60 euros per night or something like that?
And I didn't stay in the ultra cheap places. I mean, you can do that, but I knew that at 70, I don't want the party hostels, for example. But yeah, it's just doing it in a way. Every place that I stayed, um, I looked for, can I make a cup of tea? It's my big thing when I'm traveling. Get the glass of wine and a cup of coffee. Give me the cup of tea.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's true. You have to understand what your needs are and you have to make sure those needs are met. That's true at any age, but as we get older, it's even more true, I think. Thank you so much, Elena. You have been a delight to talk to. I can't wait to see you again at the boot camp.
So looking forward to boot camp.
And keep on traveling, my friend.
Definitely. Definitely.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci.
Au revoir.
Bientôt. À bientôt.
À bientôt. Again, I want to thank my patrons for giving back and supporting the show. Patrons get several exclusive rewards for doing that. You can see them at patreon.com/join us. Patreon, join us, no spaces or dashes. And a special shout out this week to my new Join Us in France champions, Abigail Merlis, Stephanie Bradley, Gina Late Liston, Laureen, and Mali Ledoux. And thank you, Robbie, for upgrading to yearly. It's great for me, but it's also good for you because you get 2 months off. Thank you so much, everyone. Would you join them too? You can do it for as little as $3 a month, but if you can afford it, I would love to have you pledge more so you can have access to more of the rewards. So go to patreon.com/join us. And to support Elise, go to patreon.com/EliseArt, ELYSART. Somebody left this review of one of my voice map tours this week. Guess which one it was. A well-balanced tour with excellent information and guidance. Many steep climbs were avoided, which meant we could focus on the sights. Another outstanding and wonderful voice map experience. So can you guess what it was? Well, it was Montmartre, of course, the place with a lot of hills and a lot of steps. Voice map is like taking a private tour with a human guide who lets you stop whenever you want, picks up again at your leisure, or even goes to a different point on the map. And you cannot do that with a real tour guide, not even with me. I'm not that open-minded when it's in person. Podcast listeners get a big discount for buying these tours from my website, and it's best for me as well because I get to keep more of what you pay instead of giving it to Apple or Google. And if you're planning a trip to France and want expert help, you can hire me as your itinerary consultant. I will improve your plan if you already have one, or suggest one if you're at a loss. And you can book that at joinusinfrance.com/boutique. Let's talk about why I recommend you use Decathlon Outdoor instead of Komoot. Both are route planning apps for hiking, cycling, and running. I've stopped recommending Komoot because I've stopped using it myself as I found a better option. And let me explain why. In March 2025, Komoot was acquired by Bending Spoons. This is the same tech company that snapped up Evernote and WeTransfer and laid off massive teams. I also used WeTransfer for a long time and pretty much stopped doing it as well because they made it unusable, I think on purpose. Getting acquired by Bending Spoons is not good news for any company, in my opinion. The first thing they do is start charging for basic services that used to be free. But that's not the worst of it. About 85% of Komoot's staff were let go. So the people who built the platform are gone. So I've switched to recommending Decathlon Outdoor instead. It's 100% free so far. Over 70,000 hiking and cycling routes are available in France with offline maps, audio and visual GPS guidance, altitude profiles, and a clean, easy interface. Community reviews, expert-verified trails, and features like exit alerts make it reliable and safe. Decathlon is a large French company that sells sports equipment all over Europe. That's why they have a strong interest in helping us find great hikes and bike paths, etc. It's owned by the Mulliez family, like they also own Auchan and Leroy Merlin. And the Leclerc family, you've probably heard of Leclerc grocery stores, right? So a couple of the most wealthiest French families right there. But anyway, I see it as a more sustainable option that won't lose 85% of its staff overnight, which makes Decathlon Outdoor a better choice in my mind and in practice. I don't have anything against companies making money, obviously, but information that's meant to entice the public to enjoy the outdoors and stay active and has been shared freely by users should not be monetized forcefully. It's like this podcast. There are enough of you purchasing my tours and services that I can make a living without putting the podcast behind a paywall. There's no need to be greedy, I think. Let's talk about the Pompidou Center in Paris. It's closing its doors for 5 years to undergo massive asbestos removal and renovation work scheduled until 2030. That means everything inside, paintings, sculptures, archives, even the library, has to move. We're talking about 120,000 works of art. Some will travel around France and abroad so the public can see them. Others are going into restoration before they settle into a new long-term storage facility being built in Massy, just outside of Paris. It's not just for the art collections. The Bibliothèque Publique d'Information, which is the most visited library in France, is also packing up and will relocate temporarily to another part of the city. Behind the scenes, this is an extraordinary logistical challenge. How do you move fragile masterpieces or monumental sculptures safely? Specialized teams are already at work, carefully emptying the permanent collection floors and preparing the treasures of the Pompidou for their journey. For the next 5 years, the Pompidou itself will be quiet, but its art will be more visible than ever, circulating across museums in France and around the world until it returns home in 2030. So if you see any of these pieces somewhere out there, please let me know. I like to hear where they've been because that's always an exciting to find out about. The Bayeux Tapestry Museum in Normandy is now closed. It shut down its doors in September 2025, on the 1st, I think, for major renovation work that will last until about October 2027. This doesn't mean the Bayeux Tapestry will stay hidden. For the first time, the tapestry is going on loan. Starting September 2026 through July 2027, the British Museum in London will host the full 70-meter embroidery. In return, some of Britain's famed artifacts, including the Sutton Hoo treasures and the Lewis chessmen, will travel to Normandy. The move is stirring a debate. Conservation experts warn the tapestry is fragile. It already has thousands of stains, holes, and tears, but French and British museum authorities say careful planning is underway. Special transport crates, climate control, shock absorbent systems, all part of this preparation. For history lovers, this is huge. It's a rare moment. The tapestry's history, its story of the Norman conquest in 1066, comes alive outside of Bayeux, and it reminds us of how art, travel, and heritage link countries across time. And I'm glad to hear that it will return to Bayeux indeed and not be sent to Paris. Paris has forever asked for the tapestry to go in Paris, and I think that's ridiculous because Paris doesn't get to keep all of the pretty things. Okay, we need some of them outside of Paris as well. My thanks to podcast editors Anne and Christian Kotoven, who produced the transcripts and the audio. Next week on the podcast, an episode about how to plan a memorable family trip to France with Heather Edison. There are a lot of things to consider. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you join me next time so we can look around France together. Au revoir. The Join Us in France Travel Podcast is written, hosted, and produced by Annie Sargent and copyright 2025 by Addicted to France. It is released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license.